Well, I'd like to say hello to everyone and good afternoon, good morning. My name is William McLendon. I am a consultant at Avanade and I help businesses uh, with supporting their different objectives through information technology. I love everything that's business apps related and D365 and Power Apps. So that's a brief nutshell about who I am. Before I get started, I hope this presentation appeases the presentation gods. This is my first time doing a live demo at one of these events. So if I mess up, I hope the presentation gods have mercy on me, as will you. I heard they love coffee.
Wait, does that coffee have liquor in it, or is that just straight coffee, Billy?
Whatever makes them happy. So this is going to be a general overview of URS. We're going to look at some of the considerations when developing an enterprise grade solution, and those considerations that we need to take in mind when scheduling our resources. I wanted to set the expectations. This will be about 30 minutes of information, and if we have time, depending on where we're at, we may not have a demo. I know. I'm sorry. So what is scheduling in D365? Well, what it does is it enables your organization to optimize placing your resources wherever they need to be. Now, that sounds very familiar because we normally would do that by tracking our activities. Well, what are the difference between resource scheduling and our activities? Well, activities are events that are indicated or that are initiated by myself. For example, I have a meeting with a client, I want to follow up on a sales opportunity, let me send this letter. Whereas when you're scheduling, when you're talking about resource scheduling, we're talking about tasks that are assigned for me, something that I want somebody to do to me, right? Whereas activities is something I want to do for somebody else. So why use URS, resource scheduling, versus field service? Well, they're two different products. Again, URS is used for scheduling anything in D365. It is the scheduling engine that enables us to schedule any entity in D365. If it's in regards to sales, field service, customer service, PSA, whatever custom entity we need that needs to be scheduled, well, URS is going to be the driver for that. Whereas field service, it really helps our organizations deliver on-site services to customer locations. D365 Field Service uses URS scheduling tools when assigning work orders to field technicians to a specific area. They're two different applications. They work in conjunction with one another. Resource scheduling can be used within your instance of CE at any time. It's available to you. But field service focuses on taking those work orders and assigning those work orders to specific technicians by leveraging resource scheduling and assigning them to the right person, right place, right time. So resource scheduling, again, the main focus is systematically organizing your resources within your organization. Once you have that information, you can publish it to your resources however you want, whatever makes them the most proficient. In regards to our use case, however, we needed to schedule leads captured from the organization's website. Now, lead scheduling on bookings on a website, that's a very unique topic. So online lead scheduling helps maximize your organization's campaigns, right? This process facilitates or makes easier by adding the appointment calendar to your organizational website in order to schedule meetings, allowing you to actively engage with your customers during their site visit. The goal from these leads is to turn visitors into customers, and we need a way for them to connect to our organization. So creating an online experience for your org's public website makes it 1,000 times easier to schedule meetings, with technicians that are browsing to your site. So our main goal here is to connect with people. We want to get them to the right place, connect them to the right person, and really we want them to see what's the best time. What's the best time for our customers? And we want to give them a very simple experience. As simple as having a click to schedule button on a home page can really drive up your revenue. And that puts them in a strategic channel so that they can generate actions, and hopefully this will help capture more leads. So there are some considerations for this particular client or this particular project. Um, our goal was really just to figure out what the customer was really reaching out for. What do they want? If you spend any time in this industry, any working with D365, we understand basically that our customers or the client's customers, they just want results and they want them really, really fast. So we needed to design a solution that would give a very easy, convenient experience for our customers and give them the option to display meetings via online or mobile devices. When designing these solutions, you really, really, really want to keep mobile in line because not many people go to their computers and just click schedule. 9 times out of 10, they're doing it from their phones. Also, keep in mind performance. When doing this, we realized that performance work was key. If you want to retrieve those available time slots, most solutions, they involve directly looking out to the technicians' calendars for those time slots. That can cause very, very slow performance cycles. If you want a real true enterprise solution, you want to leverage the schedule board that is in Dynamics. That way there's a centralized location. You know where your availability is, and the response time is that much faster. So there were some trade-offs and solutions. There were some trade-offs to our solution. We leveraged portals, and when designing our portal, we embedded a custom calendar control. It was open source. There are a few open source controls that you can look at, and we could talk about them laterwards after our presentation. But the trade-off with using portals as opposed to developing your own custom site is when portals, you're limited in structure, the amount of custom code needed to give a unique experience. So it's very important that if you're going to use portals, you set the right expectation with the client and the UX team. Again, let's set the right expectation to the client and to the UX team. So when booking our resources, the glue that holds everything together is resource requirements for resource scheduling. We wanted to create a record that notifies its resource requirements, create records. And when you create those records, it notifies the scheduler that, hey, someone needs to be scheduled. Something needs to be scheduled. But one of the key components to that is territories. Before you get to your resource requirements, you really, really want to have a defined territory structure in place. We know that an effective territory plan can make people's teams very productive. It improves customer coverage, it increases overall sales, and more importantly, it reduces costs. But on the other hand, an unbalanced territory plan and constant changes to your territory division can really hurt the productivity as well as the relationships between the clients and the account managers. That's why it's important that we work to have a well-defined territory management strategy. Whether you're just starting one or creating an existing one, you want to have a well-defined territory management strategy. By clearly defining your territory structures, it it prevents the use or the need for additional code, which equals more time, as well as it limits the ability also for downstream implementations or optimizations such as using RSO. So we really want to keep our territory structure very well defined. One of our solutions was when we were making our approach, uh, we had our territories. One technician was assigned to one territory. It was based off of zip code and location. So they had one store and one zip code, and that technician was assigned one store and therefore one zip code. So it was 1-to-1, which made it a very easy, transparent territory structure. Now, after they realized the territory structure has been defined, they have the resource requirement, and then we essentially want to find who's the best person. We book them. Once we book them, everything's flowing. That works fine. But before we get to that stage, from the customer's perspective, when we're looking at the portal, we want our customers to be able to see the available times for the best resources. So he or she can decide what's the best time for them to make their appointment. So it's important to note that your schedule board then must contain the most up-to-date available times for that resource. At this point, um, your business process could be that when an appointment is made or previously made, that a technician will receive a link in your CRM system with those details. Or at one point, he or she can have the ability to change or update those appointments, whether they need to. You want to be able to give your technicians the ability to also manage their bookings as well, right? They need to be in the know. So everyone is involved in the conversation so that we can provide our customers with the best opportunities to capture those leads and to have the right follow-ups and to meet the customer's expectations. It's important that you keep your system of record in CRM. It has to be in CRM. This will help you to avoid unnecessary loops in your software solutioning. So if you design a synchronization task, let's say, we'll get into that later on, but let's say you're using Power Automate, you want to prevent um, loops from being created. So if you have one flow that's looking for actions that you need to watch what happens when you create a booking, well, you don't want a follow-up loop to respond to that action. So you want to basically have a mechanism that prevents loops from occurring. You want to keep your system of record within CRM. This brings me back also to resource requirements as well. Your resource requirements, they help us to identify people who have in our resource requirement, we want to identify what the customer needs. So if I'm a customer and I'm reaching out to, let's say any organization, let's say it's a construction company, and I need help with my roof. Well, I reach out to them. I want to be able to get a resource on your end who's a specialist with roofing, who has that characteristic, who has that skill. I don't need someone who's good at windows. No, I want someone who's good at roofing. So resource requirement helps us to see what the customer wants, and then we can match our resources to meet that customer's need. Notifications. We want our customers to know that their voices are heard. They need to know that, hey, we got you, you're booked, we're ready to go. We also want our sales team to know what they're going into, also our technicians. We want these notes captured in our either from the portal, but we want them stored. We want them stored in the appropriate records in Dynamics 365, and we want those notifications sent to our technicians as well as our customers. Now, this is the fun part: syncing bookings to D365. How do we get that synchronization? Because if you're like me, you live and die from your Outlook calendar, right? Well, how do we sync the events that are in our Outlook calendar with the bookings that are in CRM? Because in CRM or D365 in Dynamics, the system of record has to be the schedule board. So how do we get the two to talk, and how do we prevent those loops? Where do we go? Well, you have options. You have direct bookings or time off requests. You can use a third-party solution such as Riva, the D365 app for Outlook. You can also look at Power Automate. There are options, or that gives us a way to create our own solution. But really keep in mind, performance is going to be key. We want the most accurate information all the time. Everything needs to be up to date. So let's look at our options. So we have Microsoft bookings. These could be manual entries, time off requests, so to speak. This is the simplest option. A technician would go to the system, they enter in their times that they're going to be unavailable. It's out of the box approval process, and it prevents your technicians from, hey, um, abusing the system. Let me just put this time off because I quite frankly don't feel like working that day. No, there's an approval process that's in play. So let's elaborate a little bit more on time off requests. They help keep the schedule board and Dynamics up to date.
Hey, Billy, you're showing the Microsoft booking, not the time off slide.
Oh, I must have removed my time off request slide. Sorry, guys. But essentially, our time off requests, they show in the schedule board. Um, they help the schedule board to see when there's availability and when there's not. There's a mechanism in place that basically will help your technicians to go through the approval process, and it's out of the box. Microsoft bookings as well. Well, how does the schedule board know who and when's who's available? How does it know availability time? Well, in essence, it looks at those booking records. They're chunks of time that are cut off that basically say reserved. So you can leverage Microsoft bookings. That is also, they can have that spot reserved as unavailable or put on the schedule board. There's no bidirectional sync, so it doesn't need to be with Outlook. This is an easy to deploy, and cost as well is an advantage. Riva. Riva is a SaaS offering. Is a SaaS solution. It has that built-in infrastructure needed to achieve bidirectional sync. There's no code. There's no client that needs to be installed in Outlook. It is beautiful. The only disadvantage would be cost. So if budget, as always, is a concern, you might want to take that into consideration. The D365 app for Outlook. Well, the beautiful thing about this is you're already paying for it, so you might as well use it. It gives you that granularity with tracking. You need to manually track your Exchange events. The good thing is there's no necessary extra code that's required. Tracking will help to display what appointments. You need a workflow maybe involved to take appointments into bookings, but what you don't need is, you won't have any additional need for extra infrastructure, and the product, as I said, is already free. The one thing that may catch is having users manually track their appointments. If the client or the customer really isn't big on training, then that may be a disadvantage for you. So that's something to consider when looking at bidirectional sync. Now, Power Automate. Power Automate, if you're going to take events from Exchange and dump them into CRM, you're going to wind up leveraging Graph APIs. It's very similar to what to what to what the to what the current connector is using in Power Automate. So you would have something similar to an HTTP request that goes to the mailbox, looks at the person's calendar events, and then sends them into CRM, and CRM ingests them. Graph, though, has two mechanisms for seeing there's two mechanisms within Graph APIs. You have the subscription, and you can use Delta queries. Subscriptions basically say, hey, I want to listen to this. I want to listen to change notifications for this person's mailbox from this point of time to this point of time. The limitation is you can only do it for 3 days, but you have to renew that subscription. The other option is using those Delta queries. Delta queries will essentially give you those incremental changes that happen in that person's mailboxes, calendar events rather, and you can then have some mechanism in your flow that will then discriminate whether this is a new event, updated event, or if this is something that needs to be deleted. The JSON that you will receive from those calendar events is very well defined. Microsoft did an amazing job with that. So you can use those properties to create conditioning that will help you get from point A to point B, and you can develop from there. The main disadvantage for this version of Power Automate, for the one that we developed, is it's not really scalable, and the implementation time on it was grand. It was a very long time, and development was painful. But we did get where we needed to go with the sync, and it integrates well with D365 and Office 365. Now, there's a version of using the same skills in the same tools in Power Automate that will take the load of filtering data off of it. And what do I mean by that? Well, in Power Automate, you had all your process. In the first one, we had all our processes happening within Power Automate. There is a solution that you can use that would take that data, dump it into some sort of external storage. It could be Cosmos DB or SQL table, runs a comparison job, and then ingests the data back pushes the data back into CRM. That is very scalable, very cheap because Cosmos is cheap, and very quick. The problem is the integration can be a bit difficult, and customization, you're limited in what you can and cannot do as far as where do you want to go. So what did I learn from this wonderful journey? During the project, the questions always came up. Do we need to develop custom code? Do we need to configure this? Where do we need to go? Generally speaking, you'd be very surprised about how much is configurable in resource scheduling. There's a plethora of information that I'll be willing to share after the call that's available on how to configure your solution. It will get you the best results. In regards to synchronization, I learned that our approach was heavily influenced by the client's flexibility on changing those business processes and also the budget. Another finding was making sure your territory structure is well defined. Bidirectional sync using categories, tagging information, that also helped with the bidirectional sync, but really finding out what the security team is going to approve and not approve was also something that we had to take into consideration, because most people aren't happy about, hey, you can go into someone's mailbox and pull events. Oh no. So you may need to check with the security team to see what their policies are before you start developing and building out these solutions. Personal learnings. Normally, I always associated resource scheduling with field service. During my learnings of my last few projects, though, we really had the opportunity to look deeply into the schedule board, resource scheduling. I was again surprised about how much was configurable. Regarding fulfillment preferences and looking at intervals, as Dion just covered, these were all things that we discovered that, hey, we didn't need to develop custom code for. It's right there already. In regards to bidirectional sync, and developing those viable solutions made me aware of the offerings that were available by Microsoft. Again, for example, again, look at Graph API. It is a beautiful, beautiful tool that we have. It lets you know what changes are being made. Tracking is another story. You'll need to use something else, but it lets you know what you need. It's a great tool. So, what's the point? I think I learned so much just from researching and looking into these offerings. Cosmos has a compare job out of the box, or you can track events using SQL. Just Microsoft had so much to offer. Really, that showed me that you need to open your mind, look what's available, and take advantage on what's out there. All my projects have been very enlightening, and they have helped me really just to be a better consultant and give the best advice to my clients. So we're not going to have time for a demo, but we have 4 minutes for question and answer. So I'm going to open up the board.